Welcome to this explainer. Have you noticed lately that something fundamental just kind of feels like it's shifted? And not just in one specific place or in one particular country, but literally everywhere, all at once. The news cycles right now feel absolutely constant and just overwhelmingly loud. And underlying all of that is this growing, inescapable sense that the world is simply becoming way harder to predict. So in today's explainer, we're going to break down exactly why the world suddenly feels so incredibly unpredictable, and why it has become noticeably more expensive to just live your normal everyday life.
Because for a lot of us, this global shift, it doesn't show up in complex data charts first. It shows up right in front of us, in incredibly simple, everyday ways. Groceries cost more. It is an absolutely undeniable reality, and I'm sure you felt it standing right there at the checkout line. The exact same basket of everyday food items that you were buying just last year is now noticeably taking a much bigger bite out of your budget.
And it's definitely not just the grocery store either. Fuel prices are fluctuating wildly, and often without any kind of advanced warning. The cost of just getting your car to work or keeping your home heated is literally shifting right under your feet. The reality is, your monthly bills simply feel heavier right now, even when your income has stayed exactly the same. The math is just getting harder to balance. It almost requires what feels like a degree in advanced calculus just to figure out the winter heating bill.
Because of all this, it feels entirely personal. And, well, how could it not? When that financial pressure is sitting right there at your own kitchen table, it totally feels like it's happening specifically to you. But here is the major twist we are going to unpack today. While the pain feels very local and very personal, the forces actually driving it are entirely global. In fact, the wild headlines you scroll past every single morning are practically the receipts for the higher prices you are paying today.
Section 1. Why everything feels expensive. Let's look at these global forces. Moving to Section 2. The hidden role of oil, the economy's foundation.
Okay, to really understand why things are so unstable right now, you have to start with something that most of us rarely think about in our day-to-day lives, and that is energy. We usually just think of oil as the fuel we pump into our cars, right? But consider this for a second. It takes gallons of oil equivalents just to produce the synthetic fertilizers for a single acre of crops. Oil is this vital energy source sitting at the very base of every single industry and supply chain on planet Earth. It's what moves the tractors that harvest our food, it powers the massive factories that build our electronics, and it fuels the cargo ships that move goods across oceans. So when something disrupts that foundational layer, absolutely everything built on top of it begins to shift and shake.
And a distant conflict doesn't stay distant for very long. Geopolitical tensions in the Middle East might bubble up over a few months. But within weeks, those exact tensions begin to directly threaten the massive aquatic highways carrying a huge portion of the entire world's energy. And right now, markets are hitting the alarm bell. When these critical routes are put at risk, the global economic system reacts immediately.
So, because of those distant political issues, oil prices start to rise, and that immediately makes the cost of moving literally anything, all of our transportation, way more expensive. And you know what happens when transport costs spike. So does everything that is being transported. Food, electronics, clothing, just your everyday essentials. That invisible string pulls all the way from a conflict zone directly to the price tag on that shirt you want to buy. This is exactly how global conflict becomes your local reality.
Section 3. The central bank dilemma. Let's talk about fighting inflation.
So, inflation is back. It's basically that silent, ongoing thief causing your hard-earned money to just buy fewer things than it did just a year ago. And it's rising across major economies all worldwide. This whole ripple effect of rising costs has created a massive, absolute headache for the people running our financial systems.
Central banks are currently staring down an impossible high-stakes choice. If they raise interest rates to try and control this inflation, they risk actively slamming the brakes on the entire economy. But if they keep rates low to support economic growth, they risk letting prices spiral completely out of control. It is a massive dilemma, mainly because there is simply no perfect solution here. The reason it's all so incredibly dangerous is because the problem isn't isolated, it's highly interconnected. As prices increase, consumer spending naturally slows down. We all start buying less. That directly hits business revenues, forcing them to tighten their belts, delay their expansion plans, and just freeze hiring. And eventually, jobs are lost. This is how inflation mutates from a localized pricing problem right into a much broader, truly painful economic slowdown.
And we're actually seeing this play out right now in completely contradictory ways. Take Europe. They see economic growth returning, but unemployment is actually rising right alongside it. Over in the United States, the overall economy is expanding, yet inflation stubbornly misses its target levels. Meanwhile, over in Asia, manufacturing continues to grow, even as the global risks to their supply chains are drastically increasing. These bizarre, contradictory signals are the absolute hallmark of a global system that is currently operating under massive, unprecedented pressure.
Section 4. A shifting global balance. Looking at how global power changes.
Now, at the exact same time our economies are under all this pressure, the very foundation of global power dynamics is undergoing a massive transformation. For decades, economic dominance was comfortably concentrated in just a few specific regions. Well, not anymore. Emerging economies are growing significantly faster than older, established ones. Entire global trade routes are actively evolving as we speak, and crucially, countries are becoming far less dependent on their traditional historical alliances. And this transition, it is not smooth. It breeds uncertainty, it heightens competition, and yes, sometimes it leads directly to conflict. As the global system adjusts to all these new players, instability simply becomes much more common.
But we do have to be completely clear about something. This instability isn't felt equally. In wealthier countries, these global shocks often just manifest as frustration, annoyance over rising prices at the pump or at the grocery store. But in poorer regions, the impact is sheer devastation. We're talking severe food shortages. It means energy becomes completely inaccessible to people who need it. As supply chains become more fragile, global crises naturally magnify existing inequalities. The people with the fewest resources always feel the greatest, most devastating impact.
Section 5. Adapting to the unknown. What happens to us next?
So with all these massive global plates shifting, institutions like the International Monetary Fund are issuing some pretty serious warnings, presenting us with competing future scenarios. On one hand, if geopolitical tensions somehow ease up, we could absolutely see markets stabilize, inflation gradually drop, and economic growth recover. But on the other hand, if these global conflicts continue or if they escalate, the pressure cooker just gets hotter. Energy prices could rise even further, supply chains could become even more strained, and the risk of a broader global recession becomes highly real.
It all brings us to a pretty stark realization. The world is entering a period where stability can no longer be taken for granted. We really have to recognize that economic conditions are simply changing faster now. Global events have immediate local consequences. Uncertainty isn't just a headline anymore. It has become a constant, invisible part of our everyday routines, our daily financial decisions, and really our overall sense of the future. The world has always been complex, sure, but that complexity is now impossible to ignore.
Which leaves us with one final, very big question. How do we adapt to a world that no longer feels predictable? Because the question is no longer whether things are changing, they absolutely are. The challenge now is entirely on us to figure out exactly how we navigate, plan, and adapt to this new, deeply interconnected reality. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this gives you a clearer lens to view the world through today.